a year of opportunity, year of hope, year of sensationalism, year of so much. Because I don't know, but for some reason, even though I would tell you the truth, I didn't quite feel the 2024 Christmas. Right? This is not me taking you back to going through reliving the experience of 2024's Christmas. Now I didn't feel nothing about no celebration and everything, but yes. This is 2025, and I feel it even from the very first day of the year. It is a strong year. It is a strong-armed year, and it should also hold so much, for everyone. I'm using my voice and attuning my voice to the very frequency of Mr. President in a person of the Baba himself, the number one citizen of Nigeria, talking about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as well as the Senate president right there, Senator Godswill Akpabio. Abbas Tajuddin right there has also added his voice. New Year messages flying left, right, and center. I mean, everybody is grafting and crafting their New Year message. I mean, we saw somewhat where the president also delivering a speech right there and bringing it to the fore, the fact that, hey, it is a year of hope. It is a year of sensationalism. It is a year for us to overcome political, ethno-religious divides. I mean, that's what the president's New Year message for 2025, has been all about. In fact, the Mr. President was appealing to Nigerians to ignore side attractions and distractions as well that are capable of undermining the nation's growth and development. In fact, the president also noted the fact that the nation continues to stay on the right course to prosperity. Some persons still see things through the prisms of politics, ethnicity, region, and religion. That's what Mr. President said right there. And all of these contained in the president's nationwide address in his New Year message, today. That is, he urged Nigerians to be patriotic in their dealings, as he called for a better national allegiance, right? And he has also some goals. I mean, Mr. President, in his broadcast message right there on national television and even radio stations, reaffirmed his administration was determined to reduce inflation from 34.6%, where it is currently, to 15%. I'm talking 1 and 5. I didn't say 5 and 0, not 50. 15%, right? Now, he also vowed to consolidate and increase access to credit for individuals and critical sectors to boost national economic output. I mean, Mr. President also put it out there that to achieve this, the federal government will have to establish the National Credit Guarantee Company that will expand risk-sharing instruments as for financial institutions and enterprises. Said, the target time for this is the second quarter. That's when that should begin to pour in, calling for citizen support. He said the National Values Charter also is already approved by the Federal Executive Council, and it will be unveiled in the very first quarter and built for all of this is built for the quarter. Is also the youth conference. Yeah, the youth conference is built for the first quarter as well. If you recall that the president in his October 1 broadcast announced a plan to hold a conference in response to the last year's August cost of living protest, and he had urged governors and council chairmen to work closely with the federal government to harness opportunities in agriculture, livestock, as well as tax reforms. The president also noted that fuel prices have gradually decreased, while foreign trade surpluses were recorded in 3 consecutive quarters. He said foreign reserves have risen, adding that the naira had strengthened against the dollar, bringing greater stability. But if you look at the true sense of the word, is the naira indeed gaining stability against the dollar? I mean, the president has also put it out there, the fact that the stock market's record growth has generated trillions of naira in wealth. Yeah, for him though, the surge surge in foreign investment reflects renewed confidence in the Nigeria economy. In fact, in his words, this is what he says: nevertheless, the cost of food and essential drugs remained significant concern for many Nigerians and households. In 2025, our government is committed to intensifying efforts to lower these costs by boosting food production and promoting local manufacturing of essential drugs and other medical supplies. He says we are resolute in our ambition to reduce inflation from its current high of 34.6% and to this very figure, 15%. I would really, personally now I'm talking, I would really love to see that happen, right? Well, all of these, having said so much, it is also necessary to also look at the fact that a certain group or organization, I'm talking about the Resource Center for Human Rights and Civic Education, Christ, they've called on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration to prioritize addressing systemic inequality. Systemic. When an inequality is systemic, in other words, is endemic within the system that operates, right? So institutional reforms also should be looked into, and the preservation of Nigeria's democracy in 2025. I mean, the organization as well highlighted the urgency of economic recovery, wage disparity, and democratic safeguards as key issues requiring immediate government action. I mean, they've turned the president's eye to looking at that. And we should also bring it out there, the fact that we have seen Godswill Akpabio, right? The Senate president right there, while delivering a speech somewhere in Akwa Ibom State, I think a stadium, if I'm not mistaken, he had made a very strong statement, and he had said that Nigeria was on life support when President Bola Tinubu took over the government from his predecessor, Muhammadu Buhari, in May of 2023. In fact, he said, notwithstanding the inherited bad economic situation, Tinubu had still remained determined to turn around the nation's fortunes. I mean, Akpabio asked Nigerians to be patient with Tinubu. Wow. How many times have I heard that? Patience, before. But, well, he said again, be patient. We cannot stop having patience, right? And that the president would eventually transform Nigeria the way he transformed Lagos State when he was governor between 1999 and 2007. So he was speaking in his hometown during a constituency briefing, empowerment program somewhere, at Ikot Ekpene, right there. So he said the president met a very bad condition on ground. Nobody envied him. He said he was determined to change the situation. Let us encourage him to change the situation. We believe that at the end of the day, we will move the country forward. That's what he said. He did it in Lagos before. He will do it again in Nigeria. Just give him time. He will take us to our El Dorado. El Dorado. That's what it is. All right. So that's what Akpabio has got to say in that right. But then let's come to the reality of, what's going on in the country. I mean, we started 2025 in a very beautiful note, I must agree. But then again, there were some skirmishes. There were some backlogs, some burden, some exigencies that we had transferred into 2025. If you recall, late 2024, last year, that makes me feel good when I say last year. Last year, we saw where ASU had said, well, they are postponing their strike to January of 2025, right? So we are taking into this year the bags, belongings, baggages, and all of that from last year unresolved. We should also recall that there has also been another carryover. I mean, y'all that went to university, whether or not you went to the university or you saw the four walls of a university, you must have gone to primary school or secondary school where we find repeating a class, right? Repeating a class. It's almost like repeating a class in the university, but, well, you're not really repeating the class. You're just carrying over those courses that you failed. So we have seen a carryover, of certain issues from last year, and one of such would be the banditry, the kidnapping that is ongoing right there, for 2025. I mean, we saw the massive abduction somewhere in Zamfara State, if I'm not mistaken, where the bus was burned and the people were whisked away. And up until now, we've not really heard any official statement in that regard. So insecurity is carried over. What else is carried over? Just few days, few minutes, would I say few hours now into the new year, we also saw a situationship, if you allow me to say that, a situationship that buttered around something that was brewing. Now, I'm talking about something that has to do with telecoms or the telecommunication, asking that there should be an upward review in terms of what should be the tariff for their services. In other words, they're talking about a hike in tariff. But then, as a strong point, the National Association of Telecom Subscribers rejected the proposed tariff hike. And that would be the bane of conversation, or the bane of discourse for us this morning. The National Association of Telecom Subscribers, NACOMS, they have rejected the proposed increase in telecommunication tariffs, describing the plan as insensitive and a further burden on consumers already grappling with economic hardship. I mean, the decision to reject the hike came after an emergency meeting held on Tuesday, where the association issued a communique outlining their objections. Now, it should also be recalled the fact that the backlash follows signs that the Nigerian Communications Commission, that's talking about the NCC, may approve the Nigerian Communications may approve the tariff increase, right, requested by telecom operators. Now, we were able to, delve into and catch just a bit of a source in NCC who had on December 29 dismissed claims, of a rumored proposed telecommunications tariff hike allegedly set to take effect in January 2025. However, on Tuesday, the telcos had argued that the current pricing structure no longer reflects Nigeria's macroeconomic realities. And one of the things that they cited was rising inflation, currency depreciation, and the dollarization of equipment costs. Are these very strong reasons, very legit reasons? Are they put out or put forward or pushed forward in a time that, is wrong, that you might want to deem as not very sensitive or sensual? Or should they also not make the profit? I mean, that's what every business person wants to have at the end of a profitable year of business, don't you think? But yes, that is their reason. They also pointed the fact that the absence of tariff increases over the past decade and the growing financial burden from multiple levies imposed by various levels of government. Now, it just gets us back, to some of these issues. I mean, don't they have very legit reasons to want to throw in a tariff hike? Could you say that this is a step in the wrong direction or in the right direction? Wouldn't they also be running at a loss should they continue with the present going by the present reality, without having a tariff hike? Or is your take about the wrong timing of this tariff hike. And that would also lead us to another line of thought. When then is the right timing for a tariff hike, especially looking into the current situation, right? But then history, they say, never lies. History clears the path for our present and gives us a beam into the future, into tomorrow. So historically, what are the historical antecedents that have led to the current state of telecom industry in Nigeria? And how can they, or how have they contributed to the proposed, tariff hike? Now, the National Association of Telecom Subscribers has rejected the proposed increase in telecommunication tariffs. They described the plan as insensitive, a further burden on consumers already grappling with economic hardship. Now, under that proposal, the cost of voice calls could rise from 11 naira to 15 naira per minute. Text messages would increase from 4 naira to 5 naira 60 kobo, and the price for 1 gigabyte of data would climb from 1,000 naira to 1,400 naira. Now, the association is arguing that these increases would exacerbate financial strain and reduce access to vital communication services for many Nigerians. Are we going back to that time when, before you can make a trunk call, we call it a trunk call, you would know how much you're spending for that just before the GSMs came in, during the Obasanjo administration and everything. It wasn't landlines, it was trunk calls, and you were timed somewhat, so to speak. You got a long line right behind you, and you were hurried to be fast. Do quick, be fast, be quick. We are in the line, we're in the queue, we want to make calls and stuff like that. Are we getting back to that, point? But the NCC has recently published in both the print and electronic media approving the telecommunication service operators to hike their tariffs, and the approved increment would see the current tariffs rise by about 40%, a whopping 40%. Now, what are the potential consequences of the proposed tariff hike on an average Nigerian consumer? What is it? What is it? Is it positive? Is it negative? And come to think of it, though, how will it affect their ability to access essential communication services? Essential communication services. Now, if you go to a story, let me put this out. Let's look at it now. This story now, as a Nigerian citizen, a particular citizen has put in his voice out there and saying that as a Nigerian citizen, that he has experienced firsthand the impact of high telecommunication tariffs on his daily life, and that a proposed hike will only exacerbate the situation. It will also make it even more difficult for him to stay connected with family and friends, right? And even access to important information and conduct of business will become strained. Now, the human impact of this situation, of this issue, is very significant, and it is essential to consider the potential consequences of the proposed tariff hike on most vulnerable members of the society. So it is one thing to say you're proposing a tariff hike. It's another thing to also consider, the demography of the people who are living, within this geographical, institution or space called Nigeria. What is our living standard? What is the minimum wage? What is the ratio of a daily meal? I think the last time this during the Buhari administration, we were living less than $1. A Nigerian was living at less than $1 a day. I think now it has even gone to cents now, if I'm not mistaken. Now the question still arises, and the question still lives on. It will be, how can the government and the telecom operators balance their need for revenue, especially with the need to protect the interests of consumers and ensure that telecommunication services remain quite affordable and accessible to each and every one of us. Well, to join this conversation with us, discussing on the topic, National Association of Telecom Subscribers rejecting proposed tariff hike, is Mr. Benedict, or I like to call him Sir Benedict Olalekan Agunmoye, and he is a professional, an information professional, policy and public affairs analyst. Good morning and welcome to 2025's Eagles
Good
Outlook.
morning.
Feels good to have you today. Happy New Year to you, Sir Benedict.
Same from here.
That's right, Sir Benedict. How was your, will I call it, the transition from 2025 into 2024 into 2025, first of all?
Well, we will say it's a smooth transmission.
Okay.
And we could clearly say that the roller coaster year had actually rolled out.
Okay, roller coaster years rolled out. We've seen goodwill messages from quite a number of Nigerians, as well as Mr. President adding in his voice. We've seen Abbas Tajuddin. We've seen, Akpabio also adding his voice, in that. In fact, one of the things that Akpabio had said was that the president, only came to inherit certain took over a bad economy, took over a bad situation, even before his election and all of that, and that yet the president has not backed down, taken over a position that a lot of people wanted to be, in, and is doing his best. In fact, Akpabio had cited as one of the gains from the Tinubu administration as the floating of the naira, he made mention of the local government autonomy. In fact, he said we should be patient with the president, that the president was going to take us to our El Dorado. What is your own outlook for 2025 following all of these?
Well, definitely 2025 holds better promises for all. I see it as a better year than the one before it. And I strongly pray that we will not have policy somersaults, because people are already getting the process. Bets have been tightened. Now, any form of policy somersault may reverse the expected gain. So we look at it as a year where all hands must be on deck to ensure that all ongoing efforts are sustained, to ensure that whatever we are doing in the agri sector is done holistically, to ensure that the infrastructural projects are not abandoned or delayed any further. Rather, they should actually be accelerated, so that there is a connection between the producers and the consumers. And of course, we look forward to sustained gain even in the areas of security, so that at least we will be sure that people can move around, people can do their businesses as one makes it. So those are, for me, what seems to be germane.
Okay.
Very germane is the fact that we should avoid any form of relapse. Things are started, for some foundations are already laid, and I think that they must be allowed to walk forward.
Well,
and I hope that we can have, of course, the tax reform bills and some other ongoing reform processes crystallized. And we should also be looking at, maybe we now have oil in the northeast, and I will begin to see a situation where there will be a refinery that could depend on whatever crude is coming from there, and then that adds to the energy mix, because definitely we need to be sufficient, and we need to ensure that we are refining so that the other byproducts coming from refining, including quota, fertilizers, and the rest, can then become more available to support the other sectors of the economy.
Right. Talking about acceleration, I heard you speak something about accelerating certain policies that should allow for good governance and allow for, democratic values to somewhat trickle down to the average Nigerian. Well, it does seem as though an issue is experiencing some sort of accelerating, and that would be on the topical issue as we are having to discuss this morning, the issue of telecommunications tariff. I mean, in Nigeria, that is not new. In the past, though, there has been several instances of tariff hikes which have been met with resistance from consumers. I mean, for example, in 2016, the NCC increased the tariff for voice calls by 40%, which led to widespread protest, and it led to criticisms from consumers. And it does seem that should another tariff happen, it will be going within the same percentage of 40%. And it makes one to wonder. Let me just give you a bit of a breakdown. Under the proposal, the cost of voice calls will rise from 11 naira to 15 naira per minute. Text messages would increase from 4 naira to 5 naira. 60 kobo, and the price for 1 gigabyte of data would climb from 1,000 naira to 1,400 naira. Right? Hence, the association of the National Association of Telecom Subscribers have rejected that proposed increment in telecommunications, tariff. Now, what do you think can be learned from these past experiences, and how can they inform the current debate on the proposed tariff hike? And considering the state of affairs of the country and the push for a hike from telecoms operators?
Well, I think that clearly, for me, the system needs to develop more capacity. As we speak, some of the areas in the country where there used to be network, the network today are fluctuating. And in many of the large expanse of our land where there are no form of network coverage, nobody has done anything about ensuring expansion. So where services are dropping and you want to increase tariff, it's simple. We have one of the digital TV people do some increases in the early last year. Up till now, people migrated from their platform are yet to return, even though they have done some adjustment and some price reduction and a lot of promo. So people need to know that telecom is an individual market. I can decide to buy or not buy credit. So if it's not like water or air, it's not something that people cannot survive without. So if they come with a tariff that the people think it's not acceptable, they should expect that there will be a reduction in the total number of calls. So I think that they should get ingenious and think of better means of raising funds to run their business. They should be looking at growing the subscriber base. They should be looking at growing the quality of service. They should be looking at expanding their networks to areas where there are no networks. You still can travel 2-3 hours in some part of this nation, particularly I think between Zamfara and Katsina State, going around the Faskari area and the northern fringes of the nation. You'll be traveling for 3 hours and you won't see network anywhere. So the reality is that I think that first they should sit down and look at expanding the existing services. And I don't think it is subscriber payment that will fund that investment. Now, where they are able to expand their services, where they are able to expand their offerings, where they are able to expand the quality of what they are delivering, you will realize that they are going to be able to grow their revenue sustainably. And they will then be earning value for the services that they are delivering. But if they are going to rely on just tariff adjustment, which for me is the laziest thing, is the laziest approach to raising funds. You increase the tariff and subscriber base or the number of users will drop. Today we can say there are 140, 200 million SIM cards out there. But in reality, how many of the SIM cards are in active use on weekly or monthly basis? What is the average data or the average credit that the average Nigerian, on the average, that the people are buying? So when you raise the magic mark, when you raise the price, you're going to realize that some people are likely going to remain because their capital is not expanding, their salary is not increasing. And so part of the adjustment that people will make is to reduce their consumption of the services in the telecom sector. And I can say that some of their services are not life-threatening. The services are not life-threatening, so people can cut back on them. And when that happens, you will realize that even though per unit charge has increased, the total revenue will continue to drop. As in areas not in band A electricity, for instance, where the people have been migrated, and some people have done their calculations and realized that, look, they can afford not to use the electricity and rather use their generator if and when they need the light. And a lot of people are making that adjustment. And I'm sure that if the electricity people are sincere, they can go and check their records and they will know that there are people who have decided, right, to consume less of the public power supply. And so when you aggregate, even though the unit price has been on the rise, the total volume may be down. So they should focus more on driving volume, on driving efficiency, on driving effective service delivery, on improving the quality of their service, so that those who are even actually consuming and needed to consume it can consume more. I know children will mention some network for you and say they will give you data, but you cannot use it.
All right,
you cannot use it.
Yeah,
just have school children saying that.
Yeah, let me put a peg to your thoughts now. We should go on recess. We'll be right back in a short bit. This is Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja. And yes, we are looking at the topical issue that bothers around National Association of Telecoms subscribers rejecting proposed tariff hike. I'd like to know your thoughts on that and how this will affect you as a person, as an individual, as one who owns a business, and even the Nigerian economy. Don't go away.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
Your number one radio experience you can count on. Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
My country people, who work is supposed to enjoy you after all the hustle. You not supposed to take your comfort play to fit sleep the way it's supposed to be. Make you go grab your Eurofoam mattress. Make you forget your full comfort. Whether na Euro Spring, Euro Orthopedic, or semi-orthopedic, Diamond and Diamond Plus. And for Comfort Pro Max, Eurofoam don't introduce latest in town. That na Euro Elite. This one, they sleep jolly meant no get equal. Eurofoam get quality pillows and sheetings. Eurofoam shop yakpa everywhere for Bodo Nigeria. Eurofoam, sleep the way it's supposed to be.
Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja. Here to stay.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
Right, right, back from recess now. 37 minutes gone past the hour of 9 on the AM side. It's a Wednesday, the first day in the month of January of 2025. I mean, amidst all of the good news, goodwill messages from Mr. President, from well-meaning Nigerians, as well as from you, we are back to the reality of some of the carryovers that we have had from 2024 that found their way through the cracks and yes, crevices of the wall to get into 2025. One of such would be the telecoms operators asking and seeking and demanding and vowing that there would be disruption in telecommunication services should their demands for tariff hike not be given credence in 2025. And that has led us to having this conversation with our guest, who is in the person of Sir Benedict Olalikon Agunloye, is an information professional, a policy and public affairs analyst. And I want to know what your thoughts would be. How can we indeed, salvage this situation? Is it a matter of wrong timing, or these pleas for a better upgrade in their services? Could this be that the reason for the ups and downs that we experience, sometimes calling someone and not even hearing the person, and yet your money is reading and there's no refund, no explanations? Could it be as a result of the fact that they are in need of some upgrade? Maybe that's why they're seeking for, an upward review in terms of the billings for tariff, in that sector. Or could this also be a way of being insensitive and trying to exacerbate the situation, take it beyond what Nigerians can indeed handle in a time like this? Or could it also mean that as the message of hope comes, they are somewhat stemming their roots behind the message of hope, with hopes that the Nigeria situation will change, and change from the very first day of the new year, being January the 1st of 2025. Well, I want to know your thoughts, on this. How is it affecting you? How will it affect you? How do you think the Nigerians will react to this? And how do you think this will affect the Nigeria economy, especially seeing the fact that most of the time, most of our conversation, our interaction has been over the phone, using the telecommunication, routes and all of that. Even the banking sector relies on this as well. 0907 353 0044 is that number for you to call. Was I fast? 0907 353 0044 is that number to call. The other number is 0908 766 8888. And the WhatsApp portal number is 0909 705 4450. Please just send a WhatsApp message, no voice calls, and no calling the WhatsApp number. Okay. Hello and good morning to you. Yes, good morning to you, please.
This is Ibrahim Mustafa calling from Gogolada.
Ibrahim Mustafa, welcome aboard to the Prog Show this morning. Talk to us, Ibrahim.
Thank you very much. I wish you a very happy new year.
You too, my brother.
It should be dawn of a new era for us.
Yes, please.
It should be a year that we should all hope for betterment in the government.
Okay.
Some policies are fine-tuned.
Okay.
Talking about the telcos now.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be realistic.
Okay.
The telcos are private business organizations that are profit-driven. They are not social agencies.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has increased. All their raw materials they need have increased. So it would be very unfair to say they should not increase their rates and tariffs. They must increase but they have to do it with a mindset that the economy is in a very dire condition. The economy needs help, and they have to contribute their quota too. They should be very liberal in whatever increases they want to make. I know Nigerians will not be happy about the increases, but the fact remains that everything has increased. In fact, we should give them kudos for not having increased their tariffs so far.
Right.
Almost 2 years into this government. You understand?
Right.
That is my take.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Ibrahim says, let's be realistic, right? Let's not act as if we are not aware of what's going on in the country already. These guys have kept it on the low. They've kept it static for about 2 years, and now they're talking increment. Maybe they have a strong point, for that increment. But then we should also look at the lives of Nigerians, the standard of living, the quality of life of Nigerians. Do we have the wherewithal to sustain the life of an average Nigerian? I'm not even talking about the poor Nigerians, right? I'm talking about an average Nigerian. Or is there even anything called an average Nigerian anymore? But well, still having that conversation, and of course still hoping to hear from you in a short bit. You tell us to what your thoughts are, right? Let's delve into, some very critical aspects. I mean, one of such would be the place of whether or not this, tariff increment will have economic implications, for Nigerian economy, especially knowing the fact that the Nigerian economy is currently facing significant challenges. One of such would be high inflation, currency depreciation, and a decline in economic growth. Another aspect would be the proposed tariff hike will have significant social implications. Right? One of such would be for the most vulnerable members of society. It will make it even more difficult for people to access essential communication services, and these are very critical for education, healthcare, and economic development. What are the potential social consequences of the proposed tariff hike, and how can they be mitigated? Sir Benedict.
Well, I think to an extent, yes, Mustafa's line of thought is correct to say there can be increase. But to have a 40% increase all of a sudden, for me, is not right. And the truth as we speak is that the common man, is he actually buying the 100 naira ticket for 100 naira? The answer is no. He's buying for 110 or 120. So you are paying 560, 550 or even 600 naira to get a 500 naira card. So already there is an impact on the people. And if you are buying online, you are paying 6 naira 98 kobo or something like that for USSD purchases. And sometimes even when the transaction does not go through, you still lose that money to the bank. So there is already a lot of impact happening to the people. The phone prices, maybe for reason of dollars, have gone so very high. Across the world, one of the ways where telecoms get their guaranteed fees is the fact that they have bundled packages where you get a phone on contract, and so you pay a monthly bill, which is almost as good as assured for the telecom. That they know that, okay, maybe you have this number of minutes, you have this amount of data, blah, blah, blah. That is calculated, including the phone that you are given. So you don't have to go raise 400,000 naira, 500,000 naira because you needed to replace your phone. And then you will realize that in such climb, there is also a reduction in the theft of phones. Why? Because when you steal, there is a form of insurance for the owner, for the user to get a new one. And so the one you have stolen is actually of less value in the market because there are not people who is running around to get a second-hand phone at an exorbitant price. So I think that is a sector where they need to sit down. Now, you still go around the base stations, they are still running diesel. From 2002 till now, I would have believed that the telcos should have got smarter, work together, and possibly run alternative energy sources as against running on diesel. Except you are telling me that there are some people in the diesel supply value chain who have become principalities and cannot be offended. Therefore, you have to continue to oil their own business. Otherwise, I think that there is the need for smart technology, for better processes, for better equipping, so that on the whole, the entire business process, from technical to management and to financing, will change as a whole. We know that prices have changed. There is inflation, no doubt about that. But the people, the consumer, have been impacted severally. And that's why we say, if you think the one-line approach is let's jack off tariff, be sure that there are also people who will stop accessing the service or will reduce their consumption. So the telcos are private, they have the right to jack up their tariff. The users are also private individuals, majority of whom can decide to reduce their consumption entirely.
Right.
So when we put all that to place, you have to concede some things, make some adjustments, so that on the overall, the ecosystem is balanced and everybody can move forward. But when if the telcos decide to think of their own gain alone and then they come up with 40%, I can assure them that subscriber base will reduce, consumption base will reduce, and so in the end, they are going to be making less revenue even at the increased price than they are making at the current considerably low price.
Yeah, let me take our minds, to something that has been brewing over time. Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria, that's talking about the CBN and the Nigeria Communications Commission, NCC, have somewhat directed deposit money banks, DMBs, and mobile network operators, MNOs, to settle a protracted 250 billion naira debt disputes over unstructured supplementary service data, that is the USSD services, within the next 6 months. Now, this is part of an outline, a measure to resolve the long-standing issue between the two parties. Now, CBN and NCC had issued fresh directives to the commercial banks and telcos in a recent joint circular titled Second Joint Circular of the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Nigeria Communications Commission on the resolution of USSD debt issued between deposit money banks and mobile network operators. Now, some are alluding that maybe the telcos are under pressure at this point, and just as Nigeria would do, whenever we are in need of monies and we start to sniff out ways that we can get these monies, if we have to borrow, we of course begin to beckon on very world institutions, financial institutions, seeking for financial aid, right? And where that is also being backlashed, we look back into the taxes and say, okay, how do we tax these people now? Where can we really tax to see how we can get monies from? Well, I'm talking, from the point of view of an average Nigerian now, the way we think and everything. Where can we get all of these monies from now? So let's, see how we can work on the tax. Maybe, little wonder, that's why there has been, this very strong upheaval against the tax reform bills of Mr. President. Do you also think that the telcos have somewhat pressured at this point in time and maybe seeking monies from, from wherever and however they can have it, just to be able to pay back, some of these this directive, of course, that has been given by the CBN and the NCC? And then, should that be the case, what then is the NCC doing from the place of regulations? Because some would say that there should be a regulatory framework. What role should NCC play in regulating the telecom industry? And how can it ensure that the interests of consumers are protected? Because as it stands, it doesn't seem as though the consumers have a say. It might just be a fight for now, but then it seems as though the thoughts of the telcos and the NCC and all of this will prevail.
Well, if you ask me, definitely the USSD matter needed to be resolved. Now, I don't think there is enough transparency in what transpires across the Nigerian banks and the telcos. Now, the NCC and the CBN as regulators have responsibility to the people, to the nation, and also to the businesses. So it is their duty to ensure that there is a fair platform for business continuity. So if you have come into the nation to invest, I do not expect that your investment should perish. However, you should also be able to run it sustainably going forward.
Right.
So for me, therefore, I think that we need to see more transparency on the part of the CBN, on the part of the NCC, on the part of the telcos, and on behalf of the banks. Monies have been collected here and there. What happens to the money? How are they shared? If this money is collected from the masses and the people are involved in the process, if you get transparent with it, then you would then be able to determine what you are presently getting compared to what you are spending. How does it go?
All right.
And like I said, it is still unfair that 20, 24 years, 22 years after, we are still running these stations on generators. And not when NITEL back then in 1997 was already thinking of transiting to solar transmitters and solar repeaters. Then I wonder why, now that the technology has improved and a lot of things have become smart, why are our telcos still running their base station on diesel?
Let me put a peg to your thoughts.
Polluting the air in the environment.
Yes. Let me put a peg to your thoughts. Let's take two messages now. This one right here says, "Good morning, Sir UD. Good morning to you." It says, "I want to tell you there was an increase indirectly. There was an indirect increment by telcos of 100 naira to 110, 200 naira to 220, 500 naira to 550, and 1,000 naira to 1,100 voucher." Right? It has affected businesses, and people no longer buy directly from paper voucher, but load directly from their banks, which is affecting that aspect of business today and affecting the telecoms. If the telecoms go ahead to increase tariff, it will go a long way to affect them. Let them ask the pay TV that increased their bookie what the aftermath effect is. They are struggling today with low subscription from their subscribers. All right, Abbas is reporting from Dusay now. Tekambi Hundu, all the way from Nasarawa State, is saying, greeting you and saying Happy New Year's. He's in Nasarawa now. Everything in our country is no longer the same as regards prices. Increasing tariff for telecom services is expected. However, the government must ensure the increment is not too much for Nigerians. Tekambi is saying that. Well, Sir Benedict, I would have loved to go further, but you have said that you're not totally against the increment, because these guys, they are also, there to make profits too, and they're private, enterprise. But then they should be regulated, and the government should also look into, how to regulate, these increments. Well, I want to say a big thank you to you for adding your voice in the discourse this morning. Looking forward to better days ahead, even as you've predicted, from your own personal stance, into the year 2025. Thank you for your time with us. Are you there? Okay. All right. He's out there. And then to each and every one of you, Tekambi Hundu, and you that try to put a call through now. I don't know why lately, but just late it is. Can't go any further. As well as to you, Abbas.